But right now, Caravan to Cuba. Now we know that things are loosening up. Is that right?
Well,
sort of.
We are very, very pleased that President Obama is chosen a new direction. After really a failed policy of 50 years, what doesn't work, you don't keep repeating.
Yeah.
However, there's a lot of misconceptions that now everything is fine. There are some
It isn't fine, though.
No.
Because you can't just go there.
No, there is not free travel to Cuba, and the embargo, which has been the very painful, restrictive trade policy imposed on Cuba, is still in place.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I thought that loosened up, no?
What loosened earlier was that families who are Cuban, who have relatives in Cuba, were able to give more aid to their families.
Oh, okay.
But the massive trade embargo that actually, you know, embargoes and sanctions are set up to punish governments, but they punish the people. So now there is a very positive thing to talk about, and that is that Cuba is coming off of the terrorist list.
Oh,
and it was
God.
quite ridiculous that it was on the terrist list because
the
it
Bay of
was,
Pigs. Are we going to relive that again?
well, I mean, there was a period when Cuba did support, like, the struggle in Angola against apartheid.
But there were a lot of people that struggled.
But after that Angola struggle, they have not exported any military aid. What they have done is they export more doctors around the world than the UN.
I know, I know.
And so I wish that was our foreign policy, that
really.
we would send food and doctors around the world instead of bombs. But the Caravan has always opposed the embargo, has always demanded free travel. And they've never, what the Caravan does, first of all, is with some of the vehicles that they own, mostly volunteer vehicles, old diesel buses and trucks, and they collect donated humanitarian aid that is needed to take to Cuba and donations to take so people in Cuba can buy the medicine or supplies that are needed. To give an example, this year, I'll just talk about some of the humanitarian aid and then I'll talk about the Caravan. I'm leaving this meeting, changing my clothes, and picking up some donated humanitarian aid, one from a very remarkable family that had a very handicapped daughter who died at the age of 29, and they had amassed all kinds of special handicapped equipment and portable wheelchairs and a collapsible portable ramp. Nothing in Cuba is handicapped accessible because it's old housing. So this is just wonderful that we can do that. We collect construction tools, school supplies, medical supplies, and when we can get medicine that is not going to be outdated until the 16th, we send that. If anybody's listening to this and they want to donate humanitarian aid, I will come and pick it up, and we'll put up my number, and I'll give it at the end of the program. I can be called. Now, why are they continuing? Why is Pastors for Peace continuing to do the Caravan? The Caravan are these volunteer vehicles that go all across the United States. The bus that's coming to Schenectady is coming from Canada to Buffalo, to Rochester, to Schenectady, to Hartford, Connecticut, and going south.
And are they collecting items each time? Or
each time they're collecting items. And
they need a trailer then.
Well, this is an enormous bus, and they take all the seats out. So there's one seat. This is a bus that will travel all the way to Tampico, Mexico, and then the aid will be loaded.
Do they unload the bus, or do they just put the bus right on the ship?
No. Well, sometimes buses have been donated. In fact, when you travel around Cuba, you will see Pastors for Peace decorated buses. This particular bus is one that a young man has donated for transportation.
Just for use.
So that everything on it will be unloaded by the caravanistas, the people that volunteer. We actually load the supply, what do you call them? You just had the man describing.
The containers.
Containers.
What a hard word that was.
Well, this shows.
No, I mean, it was like I was searching for it too.
Well, with a little help from our friends. So anyway, the caravan is happening and protesting the fact that the embargo is still there and it is still necessary to send things to Cuba. It is also saying there needs to be free travel. I ought to be able to travel as freely to Cuba as I did to Mexico, as I did to Bali, as I have done to Europe.
But you have to realize that it's us, because there are a lot of people that travel to Europe from other countries.
Oh,
Canada,
you can, and some Americans have for years gone to Canada and Mexico and then traveled to Cuba, but there can be repercussions. It's against the law. What we choose to do is say this is a bad law.
We're going to do it.
And we're doing civil disobedience. And civil disobedience is very much within the American tradition of Emerson and Thoreau, and in the tradition
Suffrage
of Martin Luther King, and we can draw on Gandhi also. So it's actually it's a very wonderful event, because it is both hands-on and
you're doing something.
Yes, you're doing something tangible. At the same time, you're saying this is symbolic of the fact that, well, it's not just symbolic. We are going to violate the bad law because the bad law needs to be changed. Now, we should point out talks are going on with Cuba right now. They don't have formal relations yet, but this is a very good sign, and hopefully we can look forward to the fact that the caravan will not be needed any longer. There will no longer be there'll no longer be an embargo, and I can travel freely to Cuba without breaking the law.
Well, I know a woman she's passed away, but Sue Gersten used to go to Cuba, and she used to bring her suitcases just packed full of things, and she would leave everything there. Her clothing, books, everything that she bought, she would leave there. So in a way, she did her own little many people do that. And
actually.
I think it's wonderful that people are willing to realize that there is a need there. And I mean, it's just, well, Greg went, as you know, and he's, if you go to his website, the channel, he's got videos of his walk around Santiago.
Let me just say a couple of things, because I think there's a tremendous amount of misinformation about Cuba in our media and in our information. And like, why do I support Cuba? I am very impressed with a nation that has free medical care for everyone and education. You think of the cost of education right now and the unevenness of education for kids in the suburbs and kids in the inner city. Yeah. In Cuba, it went from a nation that was 40% illiterate to total literacy. And education is free through college, but not dependent on your father and grandfather having gone to school, dependent upon your academic achievement. And those are things that we are not ever going to be Cuba. I don't want us to be Cuba. Cuba is not utopia.
No, but we should at least recognize it.
And it is a vibrant nation. It is a nation of music. It is a nation of incredible artwork. It is a nation of movies and discussion. It is a fascinating place. I'd encourage people.
We could talk forever on this, but we want to encourage you to check that out. But I just want to tell you quickly who's coming on next week. We have work coming on.
The pictures get up?
Yeah. Oh, and we're going to be talking about Sickham's lunch program, Jazz on Jay, the Celtic Heritage Day, the Sister City Project here in Schenectady, and the Seroptimus Garden Tour. Okay. We've got just a second or two. When can they see?
One thing I'd like to say is there is a group that is meeting called Albany-Cuba Solidarity the third Wednesday of every month, showing films, doing education, had a demonstration to oppose the embargo. And please, if you want to come to that, just come or call me, Mabel Leon, 372-1531, and I will come pick up aid. Come to our event June 30th when we welcome the Caravan.
Great. Thank you for watching Schenectady Today.
Thank you.
I know, I just want to make sure.